Welcome back to Life and Art with Nicole, and I'm your host, Nicole. This is a weekly podcast where we discuss different lifestyle topics such as books, acting, music, art, health, wellness, spirituality, and a variety of other topics. And I'm so excited because I'm here today with Clark. Clark is an actor, writer, and third grade spelling bee champion.
Shh, you weren't supposed to tell everyone that.
Sorry.
But yes. The cat's out of the bag. Yes.
So we're going to talk about everything that has to do with acting and writing and all those artistic fields. So make sure to stay tuned and we'll be right back. So yeah, Clark.
Hey.
What's up?
Long time no see.
It has been a long time.
I think 2 years now?
Yeah, a couple of years. What was that project that we even worked on? Do
it was
you
a
remember?
Technology commercial.
Okay.
Avaya, I believe. Was that correct?
Okay,
It was in Durham, I believe. Mm-hmm. It's so hard now with the pandemic and everything, keeping track of time. So 2 or 3 years, but it's been a while.
Right. Because I was thinking about that on the drive up. I was like, I can't remember like that episode or that whatever we were doing.
Right.
It was a commercial for something. And but yeah, so I mean, how's it been, especially like with the pandemic and the strike and all of that, like as far as work is concerned?
Kind of crazy. I'm sure that you've dealt with this as we all have. Just the moving into the self-tape world has been a huge adjustment for me. I've got friends that joke about the technology I've had to learn in the last few years because I was used to showing up at the casting office. You talk to the casting director, maybe 4 or 5 people in the room. You do your thing, and then you thank you very much, and hopefully you hear something. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But having to learn now, we have to be our own editors, our own DPs, our own videographers, the whole nine. And that's I'm very thankful to have that skill. But at the same time, I miss the in-person because you kind of miss that. I don't know, getting to look someone in the eyes is something I kind of miss. I don't know about you. But.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like what you just said, having to learn all the different technology. I mean, even just like setting up for this,
right.
Trying to figure out like the audio and, figure out the sound and the visuals and the lighting. And it's like, we have to be filmmakers.
Right, absolutely.
To be actors.
Yeah,
it's like
top to bottom.
Yeah, it's so interesting how everything has become so digitized and we have to know how to do these things. So yeah, absolutely. So I mean, have you done anything on your own, like outside of auditioning and stuff like that? Like, have you done any other small projects or anything?
I do. So I lived in Wilmington for quite a while, and it's a great film community. So I've done a lot of independent work, and I really enjoy that. Just the collaboration of it's just about being creative. You're not worried about a huge paycheck. You're not worried about. It's just being able to be collaborative and create these characters with your friends, with people in your community, and I really love that. Like to me, that's the basis of what I really love about acting is getting to create those characters as opposed to, there's different parts of the business, but that's something I really love, and so that's what I've focused on, and just writing for myself. I've got notebooks full that no one will ever see, but it's cathartic for me, and that's always been cathartic for me since I was young. So I blame my literature teacher mother for that.
Oh, your mom was a literature teacher?
She was, yeah. That's where it all started, for sure.
That's cool.
Thankful.
So you did like a lot of creative writing when you were young?
I did, yeah. I wrote for a couple of newspapers as well. But yeah, just for a lot of it was for myself. I remember in college I'd just go for a hike or go out on a canoe or just get by myself, and when I'm bogged down with schoolwork or whatever else, and just have a notebook and I'm not sure where those notebooks are now, but I remember them fondly, and it was just such a catharsis to be able to just pen to paper, lips to fingertips. It's just what I still do with auditions. I don't know about you, but I'll get a script and I still have to write it out by hand, and that helps me memorize and just being able to write that and see it in my own handwriting physically. And I don't know, it attaches. It's easier for me to build a character that way.
So you take the script, you dissect it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, and I always write my own stuff down, and I make notes on the script itself, but I also have my own notebook where I'm writing my backstory, but also writing the actual dialogue in my own handwriting, and just something about that process makes it sticks more for me. I don't know.
Do you think that connects you more to the character, or?
I think so. And like I said, the lips to fingertips thing, it's as you know, it's so much more than memorization. It's the creation of the character, the backstory, and living in that world. But something about that extra step for me really helps it be more grounded for myself. I don't know if anyone else does it that way, but
Yeah.
that's something I started early on and as a memorization technique, and it just developed more into this just feels more comfortable to me to write it out. And it can be, it's time consuming, but for me, it's worth it. For me, it's worth it.
When I was in, several different acting classes, one of my teachers, actually in my more recent acting class, had suggested that, and I'm sure like a lot of acting teachers will do this in their classes, but they have us, take the script and then we write the backstory for the character. We write, we journal as the character.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not necessarily like rewriting the script. It's more like we write in first person and we write as the character, and we tell the stories of what happened to us in a particular situation as that character. So so that's interesting. So as far as journaling, to connect to a character, I get that from that perspective. But I bet like maybe writing the script out again, or at least your dialogue, really helps you to get in first person.
Right. On my better days of writing, because sometimes I'll write it down so quickly that I look back and I'm like, hold on a minute, let me get, because my handwriting can leave something to be desired from time to time if I get a little too. So I've got to go back and like, wait a minute, what was that? But yeah, it's been very helpful to me. And I had an acting teacher not that long ago who I just have stayed in contact with. And I had multiple auditions in one day. I think I had 4 in one day. And I'm sure the feast and famine of this business of I haven't heard anything for 2 weeks and now you have 5 due tomorrow.
Right.
And I called him. I said, man, I'm really struggling because these characters are so fundamentally different. What is something I can do to differentiate just for my own mind? Because I'm memorizing all this. I'm living in this guy. He said, man, sometimes just put on the shoes for that character. And that really resonated with me. And so I'm sure my community thinks I'm crazy because I'll be out in a 3-piece suit at noon on a Tuesday, but that's the character. And I'll go to the grocery store in that, or go, whatever, go fill up my gas tank with that. And just having those shoes on, having what this guy would wear can make it more real for me. And that was such a small thing he taught me, but I was like, man, thank you. That really helped. And I called him back and thanked him for that. I was like, that really, just something so simple that can ground you into that thing was such a cool concept to me.
I love hearing how different actors like get into their characters and get into the sort of mindset and the mode of their character, the person that they are filling the shoes of. I mean, how did you get into acting, and like, how does it feel to you to be an actor?
That's such a great question, because for a long time, let me not skip ahead, but for a long time I had a really tough time saying I'm an actor. I would almost apologize, like I'm trying to be an actor, or I want to be an actor, or I'm working toward being an actor. And the term artist and actor, I really struggled with saying that. And I finally got to a point, even just a few years ago, and I've been at this for almost 20 years now. I was like, no, man, you've paid your dues. You're an actor. Like, you're doing the business of acting. Whether you book that role or not, you're doing all the work. And that comes into the process as opposed to the end result. But to answer your original question, my mother was a literature teacher. My father is a voracious reader. I'm an only child. And I grew up on a horse farm. And so that was, what a place to write your own story and create your, and of course, I was the hero in all of these. And and the horses are my knights, or my my other characters, and whatever dogs we had at the time. And the woods are full of sticks and things that can be made as swords and bow and arrows. And so I was very imaginative as a kid and kind of created my own world. And part of that's just having so much time alone. And my mom would put a book in my hand, and I got obsessed with Greek mythology and Mark Twain and the Huck Finn. And so I've always had a penchant for storytelling. And so I think that's where it really began, was just the love of story, the love of literature, the love of the written word. And then to me, I've always been fascinated with taking a 2-dimensional piece of paper and making it 3-dimensional, which is really what, the base, I think, what we do. And, we're trying to tell a story, and hopefully it resonates with someone, hopefully myself, when I'm doing it. But that's definitely where it started. But growing up in a really small town, I grew up in a town called Minneapolis, North Carolina. It's about 35 miles north of Boone. I'm sure you've never heard of it.
No, I always thought Minneapolis was in Minnesota,
right? Most people do, right?
Wow.
It means many waters. There are 2 rivers that converge in the middle of the town. So Minneapolis is Native American for many waters. And I remember reading on a census in college, the population of Minneapolis, North Carolina is 78. So I used to joke, well, population's 78, but 77 now that I've moved. And that was like a little joke I had. But yeah, super small, about 100 people.
Wow.
And so, as you can imagine, not a lot of opportunity for an aspiring actor.
Sure.
There's, church plays, and which is kind of where I started as far as that portion of it. My mom was the music minister. I was always involved in every Christmas play, Easter play, anything like that. Kind of pushed into it, but I loved it. So, that was the initial spark, I think. But no one around me understood what it meant to try to be an actual actor. It's for that to be a business or a life goal. It was not like, what do you mean? What do you mean you want to be an actor? Like where? Like, what are you talking about? And so that was an interesting beginning to say the least. Not a conventional route.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to what you had just said about, having this almost hesitation of telling people that you're an actor, because I literally have the same thing.
Yeah.
It's for the longest time. This is, I've been in this business for over a decade at this point,
yeah.
and I still get to the point where if someone's like, so what do you do? Or, which, in itself is like, why do people ask that question? But when people ask that question, I'm like, oh, I'm an actor. And I get really shy about it almost. Like it's something to be ashamed of by pursuing this thing that I'm doing. And how dare I try to be an artist, and while everyone else is, doing their regular 9-to-5 job. And so I have this sense of, there is a odd sense of shame around, at least for me, about being an actor, because I guess most people think it's a bunch of people in costumes dancing around on a stage, acting silly, you pretending, to live in some fantasy world. And that's why, for me at least, when I was young, I didn't think about the fact, I never thought about the fact that I could pursue this as an actual career. It was just like, you see people on TV, but you don't think that that's actually their work, that's actually their job.
Right.
And so now that it's like I'm pursuing it, I feel like it is like this weird apologetic, like, I'm doing this as work,
Yeah, why do we do that?
I don't know.
I'm so guilty of it as well. And even today, I'm more confident in saying it, but still it's like, an actor, and you kind of almost brace for the impact of what the reaction is going to be.
Yeah.
And it's because so many people don't understand. And I think so many people think it's such a glamorous thing. And I'm sure you can attest, it's not a glamorous business.
At all.
It's not glamorous
hard.
at all. If you get to that top echelon, the Denzels, the Brads, then that, of course, that would afford you some glamour. But 99.9% of actors, it's a slog, it's a grind, it's a lot of work, it's long days. And something that always has bothered me is it's a business of no. You hear it's a business of no, but it's not. It's a business of you hear nothing. It's not even no. It's, you put your, you get your script, you put your time, you put your work, you build your character. And now we have to, like we said, be our own DPs, film it, edit it, get it sent, and it's out into the ether. Maybe you hear something back, maybe you don't. 9 times out of 10, you don't. And so it's not like, no, you did this wrong, you did this. It's just, I don't know.
That is a really difficult part of this business. Most people, when they go to their regular 9-to-5 jobs, they know what it is that they're doing. They get their report. They know, the progress they need to make. They get feedback. But we go into an audition. We prepare. So we take the time that we need to prepare our character. You write the whole script out again. Right. We go in, we do the audition, and then, they don't even really give us visual feedback. So we're just like there, and they, a lot of times they purposely don't do that because they don't want to get us our hopes up. Right. And so we go in, we do the audition, and then we leave, and we're like, okay, I think I did a good job. And then most people think that we would get feedback, but we never get. Right. Well, maybe there are some cases where you do, but 9 times out of 10, actually 99.9% of the time, you will never get feedback from the people that you audition for. So you have no idea what you need to adjust. You have no idea if you did what they were looking for the character. You just don't know. Right. And that's what makes this business so difficult.
And I think someone that's not in this business, just they don't understand it. Like, I've tried to make an analogy of, okay, say you're talking to someone in a romantic setting for a few days. You've gone on a couple of dates. You put in time. You've gotten to know the person a little bit, and then you never hear from them again. That's kind of how it feels to me, because you're you're putting everything you have into this character for 2-3 days. Sometimes we get less than that if it's a truncated thing, and then it's just. And for me, I've had to learn to, after I finish the audition, I actually crumble up the script like ceremoniously and throw it away. I don't know if you save your scripts, but for me, I have to, I did everything I could for that. If they call me back, I'll print it again. Mm-hmm. And I just toss it in the trash.
Like release it.
Yeah, it's almost like I did everything I could do with that. And I had to kind of shift my perspective of it. And I've heard a few acting teachers say this, but it really hit home for me in the last, I don't know, maybe year or 2 years of whether you get the role or not, I get to act today. I get to create this character. And that's what makes you an actor, not being at the top of the heap. It's doing the work and putting your heart into it and actually trying to create this character, make it real for yourself, and learning to love that character even if they're unlovable. I've got to like something about him. I've got to find something I like about the guy I'm playing. And then realizing that regardless of what happens, it's out of my hands now. I've done everything I can do. And I got to act today. I got to be an actor today. Maybe it was for 30 minutes, maybe it was for an hour, but I got to do it today and to be thankful for that. And that's hard, and that's on my better days. There's some days where I'm just like, but on my better days, I can have that perspective. And that's, when I feel that way, I think it's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. But it's not always. Mm-hmm. It's not always.
So what are your thoughts on like the strike? And I mean, obviously we're at a great time right now because they just came to a decision to really benefit the actors. But like, what was your take on that whole like strike thing? Because there have been strikes before, but this was like kind of at least for me, my first run of experiencing like workers, actors fighting for compensation for, at least the way I see it, like we're entertaining everybody. We're like, we're bringing something, we're bringing joy to people's lives. Like, why do we need to like tell people that we need to like get compensated for it? Should be like a no-brainer,
Absolutely. I think it's been a long time coming, and I'm not at that top echelon, and so I really appreciate the top of the heap of the actors that were standing up. And I hear a lot of comments of, why is this $20 million actor the spoiled brat asking that? No, they're not for themselves. They're trying to help me, my level. But I think it's such a valuable thing. I think that the entertainment, that film, that storytelling is such a valuable thing. I've been rereading. Have you read Will Smith's book by any chance? So I've been rereading it. And there's when he was playing Ali in Africa, he spent some time with Nelson Mandela. And he called him Madiba. That was what his friends called him. Madiba was like a term of endearment. And he said when he was locked up for 27 years, halfway through, they would allow him to watch a film once a week. And he loved this film called In the Heat of the Night. But it's Sidney Poitier. And he could tell there was a scene that had been cut out. And he was obsessed with why was this scene cut out. And so he actually used all his connections to find out. And the scene that was cut out was Sidney Poitier actually slapped a white cop. And he said, that gave me hope. And so he said to Will, never underestimate what you do. And to me, that was such a profound thing. Like, I don't think about it having that kind of an impact, but clearly it does. Mm-hmm. And for someone like that to say it, I was like, man, there's so much value in art and expression and storytelling. And, it's not this frivolous thing. Like it's been incredibly important to me throughout my life. I'm sure to you as well. Yeah. And both behind the camera and in front of the camera, and then just what I watch and what I consume. It takes a lot of forms. Music's a huge thing for me as well, but it bothers me to hear it undervalued, I think, because it is so valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, same. Like I grew up, like there are movies that I still continuously watch, I've seen them like 30 times and I still watch them because there's something magical about it, whether it makes me emotional, whether it, drives me, it gives me, courage or whatever it is. It's what I'm watching visually and hearing, and, observing. Art, at least for acting in particular, it's like, it's our way as actors to portray experiences that other people have either had, whether they're fictional, non-fictional, but we're able to portray that for people and give people a sense of whatever it is that they're looking for. And so, in that sense, we're working. It is work, and we should be compensated for the work that we do, because it does take days sometimes for us to get into character.
Right.
And yeah, so for me, when, to hear that these studios, at least in the middle of everything, when there was back and forth between the studios and then the guild, I'm like, how is it possible that these studios don't even understand?
Right.
Like, they're making hundreds of millions.
How can we be this far apart on it?
Yeah.
How can we be this far apart?
And obviously strikes are across the board in all types of industries. We've seen not writers, but we've seen teacher strikes. We've seen
auto workers,
strikes. Yeah, we've seen tons of strikes. And you would think that at this point in our society, the society would value the workers, and there shouldn't be even a question of whether we pay someone for the work that they do.
Without question. I mean, how many times have you heard, like, we'll pay you an exposure? And I'm like, what other industry does that happen in?
Right.
It doesn't. And it's long. People don't understand it's a long day. How many 15, 16, 17-hour days have you had on a film set? I've had hundreds of them. Mm-hmm. And, that's still, whether you're digging a trench or building a wall, it's time served. And you're still working on this, this ultimate goal to create this story, hopefully, collaboratively, is what we're trying to do. But it's not just, that's something I didn't understand as a kid. I remember watching Home Alone and thinking, I could do that. It'd be really hard to memorize 2 hours of dialogue. I had no idea that, at 8, 9 years old, that it was broken up and this took 9 months to film. I had no idea.
Yeah.
But, now just, getting to see kind of how the sausage is made, we understand more of, and how many people are involved in a production.
Yeah.
You watch a 30-minute, 22-minute sitcom, there are 350 people involved in that, and that have families and are supporting their communities and themselves. And it just seems so absurd to not even and you hear a lot of the negativity, and I'm like, well, what do you watch? Do you not watch entertainment? Do you not watch television? Do you not watch movies? Like, what do you mean? What do you think happens when you pull that plug?
I heard some people, and they were like, these actors are asking for too much money, and they don't need to do that. And I'm thinking, do you have kids? Do your kids watch cartoons?
Right.
Because those cartoons don't just magically have voices. Those are actors that are doing those voices for these cartoons.
Absolutely.
That your kids are watching. Yeah. Commercials, every commercial that you watch, those are actors,
Absolutely.
It's like every corporate, video is done by actors.
Yeah. Even the commercials you hear on the radio when you're driving to work, like, that's an actor, that's a physical person that created that character to sell you whatever they're selling at that time. So it's just, I think, a fundamental misunderstanding. I think I kind of maybe got off track. I think, to answer your original question, I think the strike's a long time coming, because it's just equity. It's just valuing what people do, and it's it can be a very heart-wrenching thing. Yeah, we all know the dangers of getting too deep into a character, or affecting our personal life, and I've certainly been there, because you have to give a piece of yourself. Or I believe you have to give a piece of yourself in everything you do in this business, and that has a toll. There's a toll involved in that, in any creative expression. Yeah. In any creative expression. So, what
project have you done that was like really kind of pivotal in your career, or that you feel like maybe you reached a point where you're like, wow, like, this is amazing. I can't believe I got this, or
For me, it's not always about whether it was like a career changer. What I've tried to focus on, kind of touching on what we talked about earlier, is the process of, because at the end of the day, it's what you did on the day. It's the hang. It's the people you get to surround yourself with, what you created together. Because we all know, I've been victim of the cutting room floor. I don't know if you have, many times, where you thought you did a great job, and not to take that personally, because it could be just it didn't fit. Maybe the words didn't fit, and just focusing on the day, or the time you spent on that project and the people you got to interact with. One of the coolest things for me, and this was, you'd never know it was me in the film, I worked on a film for Nickelodeon, I think 2 years ago. But we filmed at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and I got to throw football with professional football players.
What?
And so it wasn't even about, like, the character was a lot of fun. I played an offensive line coach, which was, not a lot to it, but I got to actually, like, hey man, you want to throw the football? And I was like, the little kid in me was like, are you kidding me? I get paid to be at this football stadium. I'll throw my arm out to absolutely, I'm going to throw this with you. And just, 30 minutes between takes, getting to just hurl the pigskin and just tell tales. And I've kept up with a lot of these guys, and to me, that's a beautiful thing. Because if you get caught up on the end product, because at some point it's out of our hands. At some point, I've told my story, or I've told this character story to the best of my ability, and then maybe it doesn't fit in the end product. But not getting discouraged by that, and remembering, like even something simple as this, we worked together one time and now we've been able to reconnect and talk about this. And I think it's a beautiful thing about this business. You share that time together and just trying to create something. And so for me, those benchmarks have been more about just the times I remember on set. I've been in some projects I'm very proud of. But those are the things that really stand out to me, is the hang. I think it's Tom Hanks that called it that. At the end of the day, it's about the hang, and that resonates to me so truly. Because you can work on the best project ever and not get along with the people you work with, and I fortunately haven't had that issue, thankfully. And but
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, do you want to talk about your first experiences, like on set? Yeah, what were your first experiences as an actor? Like on set, or
on,
like, did you
on
start?
an actual set?
Yeah.
So I did, like I talked earlier, I did a lot of church plays and things like growing up, but that was just local stuff. And for whatever reason, I didn't get into community theater or even theater in high school. And looking back, a wealth of insecurity, I would imagine, is the real reason. But I just never did. And I planned on going to UNC Wilmington because I knew. At that time, Wilmington was a huge hub. It's came back again now after the losing the incentives. But at that time, Wilmington was a big hub. Screen Gems was larger than life to me. And coming from the small town I came from, like that was kind of the goal. Like, I'm going to go to school there. I'm going to plug into that program. And I came down to UNCW. I toured the campus. I saw the beach, and I was like, I will never graduate. There's no possible way, which was a good decision. I went to App State. And I was an ad major with an ad and PR major. And so all of my junior and senior year, all of my classes were projects where you had to stand up and talk. And where most people shied away from that, I loved it. I just felt a real rush from it. So I would have like a basic outline of what I needed to say, and I'd just stand up and just wing it. And I was like, I've got a captive audience like in this class that I can. And that's when I was like, really like, okay, no, this is something you have to do. Because for me, I was like, I don't want to be 50 years old and say, I wish I would have tried this. I wish I would have given it a shot. So fast forward, early 20s after college, I moved to Wrightsville Beach. One Tree Hill was the big thing at that point. I'm sure that, I think they just had a reunion last week, actually. I saw photos. But my first ever professional gig was playing a basketball coach, Coach Ryan, on One Tree Hill. And if you blink, you'd miss me. It's like at a basketball camp at Laney High School where Jordan went to school. But I just remember I took it as such a learning lesson of how these actors hit their marks, because I'd never seen anything like that. All my experience had been, like I said, local stuff, church stuff, and getting to see just those technical aspects that I had no clue about. Like, where's the camera? Find the camera. How is this actor hitting his mark? Where is he doing this? And I found it all fascinating. There's a lot of different things about extra work, but for me, that was a huge lesson, a valuable lesson. I've certainly done my share of extra work, and sometimes passed when I probably should have, just to get to be around actors and see how they. I always ask for the sides. I don't know if you do that on set, but regardless of what role I'm in, I want to see, and I'll kind of read this guy's lines and say, I wonder here's how I would play this, and then you get to watch that professional actor, how they would play. And I'm like, oh, interesting. I don't know if I would have made that choice, but that's interesting. And to me, it's like, if you pay attention, that can be the greatest acting lesson of all, just watching people that are good at what they do what they do. Yeah. And so but that was my first. I was early 20s and played a basketball coach. I was on the sidelines with doing the clapping, having a little clipboard. And that's awesome. I was like, king of the world. Yeah. Oh, here's my check for $88. Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. $88.
Right.
So you said you have not done stage work. So have you done any stage work?
I have since. Yeah, I've done quite a bit since. I prefer film and television for myself, but I've got a great respect for stage acting. It's such you have to act to the back of the room, as you know. And I like the nuance of film and television, that it picks up the camera knows all, and adjusting between those worlds can be very difficult if you're used to being big and boisterous, and which is kind of my default setting anyway. So bringing that down for film, television. So yes, to answer your question, I have.
Roles or like what projects have you done?
So in college, I did say I didn't do a lot in college, but I did a couple like small stage projects where I played Rooster from Little Orphan Annie. Hilarious, right? And I did quite a bit in Wilmington, just local productions that were written by screenwriters in Wilmington or playwrights in Wilmington, I should say. Mm-hmm. And so I did quite a few of those, and I really enjoyed them. And it was actually people that I ended up working on other film projects with. So it's kind of cool to get to see the same people in different roles, different aspects, and different settings. But at the end of the day, film television is more my speed. But I love going and I worked at a performing arts center for a couple of years, so I was able to see a lot of professional work, which I really loved and probably took for granted at the time. But looking back, I'm very thankful for it. And, yeah.
So you said you lived in LA for a little while. Like, what was that experience like?
Hilariously enough, so little backstory. I was living in the Wilmington area, and this was during the pandemic. My wife and I are a bit of vagabonds, and we ended up selling everything, buying an RV, and hitting the road. And so we traveled through 22 different states and stayed in Cali for a while. I was in Palm Springs. So I had a few gigs in LA, a little small stuff, and I actually turned down a gig to come home for Christmas. And that was, I don't know, a strange win. I'm very thankful I made that decision. It was the right decision. But what's hilarious is I was living in Palm Springs, about 2 hours out of LA, where I could the majority of my auditions were coming from Atlanta and from Wilmington. and so I was like, I'm here in La La Land. Like, I'm here like in the hub, right? And like George and Tammy was out. So I was getting all these auditions for George and Tammy, and I was getting a lot of stuff in Atlanta. And that kind of we ended up moving to Georgia shortly thereafter. So I was there for several months, and then I loved it. I loved Palm Springs. The weather's incredible. There's a lot of creativity. I'm a huge, kind of an old soul. I'm a huge Sinatra, Dean Martin fan. So we could see Bob Hope's house above us in the canyon. Drive around the corner, there's Dean Martin's house. Here's the Purple Room where Sammy Davis Jr. performed. And so that creative energy was fantastic for me. And having to really make it work in this RV, like I was setting up all my lights and my camera and like a backdrop in this 105 feet. And so that's the time I felt maybe that's when I became able to say I'm an actor, because I'm like, it was not easy, to set up, but I loved it because that really felt real, and to be that close to LA. But then for all of it to be back in the Southeast was such an interesting dichotomy. Mm-hmm. But it was 90% of my auditions were coming back from Southeast. And I was like, maybe there's something there. That's interesting.
Well, so when were you in LA? Because there was a lot, a lot started happening like in the South. Right.
It would have been a little less than 2 years ago. So right around 2 years ago.
So like kind of after the South boom.
Right.
That similar kind of thing happened. I was in North Carolina, then I moved to Georgia, and then I started getting all these North Carolina auditions, and I was like, I just left. Like, what are you guys doing?
It's the grass is greener thing, right?
Yeah.
Did you leave after the tax incentives?
I did. Yeah, that was the main reason why I left, because like there was just more work going to Georgia and less work was here, and it made sense career-wise to make that jump, because I was like, okay, I'm going to pursue this, like, because I was doing, a lot of local commercials, industrials, stuff like that.
Yeah. Same.
And
those are the bread and butters, right?
Yeah,
those pay the
exactly.
bills.
Those do pay the bills. And no shame that. So actually,
no.
It's really funny. People have said to me, or like, I'll run into like random people and they'll be like, you look so familiar. And then I remember one time someone was like, I saw you in the Cisco, for the in-house like video for our company. And I don't know if it was Cisco or not. I think it was, but I was like, yep, that was me.
Sure was.
So whenever people like, they come up to me and they're like, you look so familiar. I'm like, nope, I don't know you.
Nope,
like,
never
you
seen
don't
you before in my life.
Never seen you.
And me being 6'5", it's kind of hard to hide, like, no, it was you. Okay. Yeah, I had a guy call me not that long ago. He's like, I saw you, man. I was at this convention and you were in this, it was an industrial same thing. And it was like, I'm like working on an assembly line or something. And I was like, how was it? He goes, well, I'll be honest, it was really long and it was pretty bad. And I'm like, oh, great, thanks. Good to talk to you. Thanks for calling.
Yeah.
But I've done plenty of those for We don't name any companies, but yeah.
That's fun. They're fun. I mean,
they are.
I mean, whatever. Every actor, every professional actor, no matter how high level they've got, I'm sure they've done.
Oh, no question.
It's like
question.
It's almost like the what is that phrase? Like the thing you have to do in order to get where you're.
Oh, right. Paying your dues.
Paying your dues.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Industrials are paying your dues.
No question.
Well, yeah. So, I guess like the last kind of thing I wanted to really kind of ask you and talk about was like your perspective on art and like what does art mean to you? How does it fit into your worldview? And anything else you want to kind of say on that?
I mean, it's such a huge part of my life, and I don't want to make it just about acting because that's a huge part of my life, but I'm a huge music fan, and we're talking earlier about when you resonate with something, I think we're all just trying not to feel alone, right? Like someone else understands, someone else gets what I'm going through, someone else sees this worldview or this world perspective, and I think that's, the movies you say you watch over and over again, something about it spoke to you, right, and continues to speak to you, and sometimes it's just about the familiarity of that. Sometimes it's about picking out more nuance in a different time you watch it or a different stage in your life. But I mean, Friedrich Nietzsche said, life without music would be a mistake. Yes. I would replace that with life without art would be a mistake because I can't imagine like a day without music or, some form of expression. And it's all around us. I mean, something as simple as what you put on your body and how you express yourself to the world. But it's such a huge thing for me, and the written word is where it starts. So I think that encompasses movies, film, television, music, poetry, literature, storytelling. It's all storytelling, and that's what fascinates me about it. Thank you, Mom, for putting these books in my hand. Thank you, Dad, for teaching me to read. For both of them, teaching me to read. It's as an only child on a horse farm, getting lost in a book is. You could be anywhere and be anyone at any time you want to be. And so I think it's such a beautiful and powerful thing. And I don't understand when someone says, I don't really care for, I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? How do you function in the morning? How do you, so to me, it's such a huge thing. And it's, I mean, like Nietzsche, I can't imagine life without it. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to. And there's so many, films I can point to and quotes and lines and music I can point to and that have shaped and when you're in your darkest times that you can go back to, and when you're in your most joyous times you go to, and just I don't know, that's the beauty of art to me is it can be exactly what you need when you need it. And I think that's the simplest way to put it for me. It can be exactly what I need when I need it, and I don't want to live without it.
Yeah. Wow. That's great because and I like what you had said about how can we live without it? Like art is all encompassing. It's part of everything that we have in the world. Yeah. Art makes buildings. Art, designs roads and rivers and and so I mean just all facets of art is life, and that's exactly why I titled this podcast Life and Art, because it's like you can't go anywhere in life. You can't, no matter what stage you are in life, you're going to encounter art on whatever degree or whatever level it is. So I definitely think art is extremely powerful, and I love that we get to be like physical expressions of it, it's not just a painting on the wall. We get to be walking, talking, moving.
Right, that three-dimensional. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, three-dimensional art in a sense. So that's really fun. And I mean, I really appreciate you coming on and,
That's great. Thank you so much for having me.
I definitely appreciate you coming. And I definitely look forward to seeing your projects, any new projects that you have coming up. And do you want to tell our listeners and our viewers where they can find you, like website, socials?
Yeah, sure. So my acting website is Clark C. Tatum. It's on Instagram. I also have a Facebook, Clark Tatum. I'm currently working on a website, so that'll be coming soon. Been a little slow with the strike. I've got a few things coming. I'll have some more independent work coming later this year. I worked on a commercial last week. Can't talk about it yet, but stay tuned for that. Pretty excited. And Puma commercial just aired where I played a basketball player.
Hey,
shockingly.
Awesome.
LaMelo Ball, the point guard for the Charlotte Hornets, had a new shoe from Puma drop, and I got to be one of the guys in the commercials. So that was a lot of fun. But as we talked about, commercials and and the industrials are the bread and butter. But I'll have some more character-driven pieces coming later in the year. So
very cool.
Looking forward to that. But
well, great. Well, yeah, definitely check him out and follow him on social media. And as well, while you're there, follow me. And you can find all my socials, all of my links to everything on my website. It's NicoleBurgessMarsh.com. And once again, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for listening. Clark, thank you again.
Thank you.
And I will see you in the next episode.
Cheers.